I am an artist and I'm very geeky. So I like computers and have done since I was 6 years old. And I've been able to code all my life. And I keep thinking that I don't want to do this. And yet I find myself at Google for 15 years now. And I keep thinking that I'm not an artist, and yet there isn't really any other way to describe my practice, like sort of on the whole over the last 15 years. And it's sort of moved between working with arts organisations. So we did the art project, the Google Art Project is one of our, was an early project of ours. I'm working with the Guggenheim. We've done films with, we did a film called Life in a Day, which was YouTube, because of course we bought YouTube, so then we had to do things with YouTube. And just exploring all these different cultural spaces as they kind of pop up, and how ideally digital tools can augment artistic practice. So like things like digital books, which I know the British Library, we did a project called Editions of Play, which was about 5 years long, just working out what happens to a book. What does bookness look like in a digital world? And it's been a great privilege to be able to do those things. But it doesn't really fit into anyone's categories, as it were. We've done a rather strange thing as cultural practitioners, which is to somehow concede that much of the fabric of the world is not dominated by cultural output, is not dominated by the arts. People do not read financial reports at funerals. Like you're not greeted into the world with like a spreadsheet of your future costs, even though that'd be more useful probably. But we make and communicate as tribes across linguistic boundaries. So when we don't have language, we use culture to communicate. That's why it speaks to us. That's why there's no words can't describe. It's like, of course words can't describe. It's what it does. And we use our culture as sometimes the best representation, sometimes a friendly. It's basically a negotiating tactic in any kind of trading institute. It's good cop, bad cop. It's everything. The haka is one of the great bits of culture, even though it exists within sport, which is a different kind of codification. That's a codification of tribal violence, intertribal violence, and that's done a very good job. And culture is a codification of systems of knowledge, and it's done a very good job of that. We don't even recognise it as that anymore. But the idea that it is somehow worthless is simply because it can't be translated into finance, because finance is a codified form of collateral exchange and assets. We've lost our language. We've lost the ability to speak and to make a powerful case, because we're constantly being forced to make that argument in their language. And when we do invite them to come to, which we do all the time, to come to cultural events, you find that they are very moved, but they can't translate "are very moved" into the effect that an army of people who are very moved by, say, a populist politician in the United States can have on the world, or the power that, like, the videos and literature sort of directed in a certain direction at the time of sort of Luther's protest can have on global history. Like, we look at these things as if culture exists in a museum, when actually everything is an echo from its impact. It wasn't money that it wasn't money really. I mean, it wasn't money that brought down the Berlin Wall. It wasn't a financial. I mean, you do see histories that want to make it into a financial situation, but culturally, it was an incident of pressure brought about by culture. There's almost all of history can be rewritten, can be revisited, but we don't do it. So I think we need to take a slightly more bullish tone as to the power and weight of our work, and actually to acknowledge where the weight of our work is really these days. We are literally like waving this economic fortune out of the door because of a refusal to acknowledge that bums on seats is a ridiculous way to evaluate and subsequently fund an arts service. What I think we don't do is understand that we are gifted content makers. We're natural English speakers. The Australians have natural charms and qualities that speak so perfectly to a new world which is going to be very fragmented and very divisive and very digital. And I think that thinking big is fundamentally establishing that you want really thinking big. I think fundamentally establishing that Australian culture does not include First Nation culture. Like Indigenous culture is a 65,000-year-old culture. Ours, at best, is, well, Australian culture is 200 years old, but even even Judeo-Christian, sort of, which is probably the worst bits of Western culture, is a couple of thousand, 2,000-3,000 years old. So that's nothing. The idea that we can impose ourselves and then somehow collaboratively, like sort of purloin, it's what we do generally, like or take or borrow. So I think that there need to be two streams of culture because there are two cultures. This Indigenous culture is not my culture. I have no place in that culture. I have no rights in that culture. I frequently misstep in that culture. I think it's amazing and brilliant and miraculous, but I hate having to describe it as amazing and brilliant and miraculous and mine, because it's not mine. It's not my culture. And it's not my culture to sell. It's not my culture to protect. It's not my culture. It is actually my culture to protect. That's the point. It's my culture to help because of what we did before. You want reparations. I think the first reparation would be like stop talking and creating actions that people can actively do. Then the other stream of culture is not doing other cultures. Culture is so art is, if culture is a knowledge system, like Indigenous culture, it's a knowledge system. It's a very old knowledge system, knows what it's doing, no problem. It genuinely knows what it's doing. It's unlikely to do exciting and new novel works. Our culture, very new. So when you allow our culture to interact with other cultures, you get these collisions. And when you get collisions, that's when you get novel works of art. Now, most of the institutions we support are actually generally performing or preserving and promoting old collisions, not so much new collisions. And we have to find a way to understand and locate the new collisions in cultural expression that are making the kinds of art that truly move people, that are art.